This literally happens only once in a lifetime, and I was lucky enough to experience it. Death Valley National Park is a desert valley situated in East California. It is supposedly the hottest place on Earth during the summer, reaching a high of 134 degrees Fahrenheit, and Badwater Basin inside the valley is known to be the lowest point of elevation in North America at 282 feet below sea level. Now, why is this park called Death Valley? It's because back in winter 1849, the desert was en route for a group of unlucky pioneers trying to make their way to California. They would later be known as the Lost 49ers because these poor dudes were actively looking for gold, but due to some bad planning came across this barren wasteland. They were attacked by Paiute Indians, forced to kill their oxen, burn their wagons to cure the meat, and basically left with just their feet to make their way out west. By the time that two scouts, William Manley and John Rogers, came out to the rescue, only a handful of those pioneers were still alive. As they were rescued, one of the survivors looked back and mournfully said, "Goodbye, Death Valley." And the name has stuck ever since. So knowing this seemed like a great challenge for my good friend Joe, who backpacks full-time for his photography career, and me. But anyway, I flew out to Vegas from Houston while Joe drove 30 hours from Atlanta to meet up with me there. We spent a couple days in the city, losing good money at the casino, having a nice beef Wellington at Gordon Ramsay's kitchen, and honestly soaking in as much of this dystopian plastic oasis that we could before we lose touch with civilization. Vegas is the closest major city to Death Valley, and it takes about 2.5 hours to drive out there. Once you get into the desert, one thing that you'll realize is that you will be completely disconnected from society. It's not to the extent of Big Bend, but unlike some other national parks, there's no town or city within a 50-mile radius. So even in today's terms, you really do have to come prepared with food, heat, and water. But upon entering the valley, you start seeing mountains ranging from low hills to high snow-capped peaks, sand dunes, and salt flats. There's so much terrain diversity here, and I was completely blown away. Camped through the cold 40-degree night as we had a full day of hiking planned the next day. But let me tell you, my phone cannot do justice of how clear the stars looked that night. We woke up early the next day as we had a sunrise to catch. We were playing against time as we wanted to get to the peak of the Mesquite sand dunes before the sun was fully up. It's around a 2-mile hike to get up there, but with the sinking sand, it can make it feel like a 4-mile hike. Slowly but surely, we pushed through and made it just in time to be greeted by the daylight. The next hike on our list was Mosaic Canyon Trail, which is a 3.4-mile round trip. A quarter way into the hike, the 80-degree dry heat really started getting to us. Keep in mind that we are here during February and we're already dying, so imagine how bad this would be in July. But here's the thing about the trails of Death Valley. It's honestly a great geology lesson as you see the effects of erosion and faulting through volcanoes, flash floods, and other extreme climate patterns. 15,000 years ago, Death Valley actually had water running through it. Mountain glaciers melted from the changing climate, causing these streams that pierce through rocks. For example, that's how this dry fall was formed at the very end of the Mosaic Canyon Trail, and that's how this bridge was formed at Natural Bridge Canyon. The water eventually all led to this lake in the middle of the park, which at one point reached 180 meters deep. However, it's a different story today due to the dry climate and the overwhelming evaporation rate of 150 inches per 1.9 inches average rainfall that the park receives every year. This explains why it is typically a dry salt flat at the lowest point in North America until now. You see, since August 2023, East California has been experiencing unprecedented amounts of rain and flooding, and after 15,000 years, Lake Manley has finally formed again. As you can see, the water is right below knee height and it remains as such throughout the entirety of this lake. Even at this depth, it was enough for some folks to go kayaking. One of these kayakers that we met was expressing how rare this opportunity is, that even walking in this water is truly a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity.
So you said it's a once in a 10,000 year opportunity?
The last time there was a lake here was 10,000 years ago.
That's crazy.
Not only did Death Valley feel like some supernatural creation of God, but also this very moment as well. Hearing that from Mish made me appreciate the fact that I could be here witnessing this with my good friend Joe. Up until then, we came across many friendly faces at the campsite and on the trails. Like Mish, many of them were well-aged or perhaps in their retirement traveling about. One piece of wisdom I kept hearing from them was to explore these national parks while we had youth in our favor, and that the biggest regret they had in life was not doing that sooner. Seeing how harsh and unkind the desert of Death Valley could be is a true testament to their word. It really makes you appreciate the youth and energy that you have now to be able to hike and explore as long as we could, or withstand all the extremities through day and night. This is something I will never forget, and I wish y'all were there to see it in person, because Death Valley is truly a heavenly place. It will hold near and dear to my heart, and I know I will be coming back someday. But until then, goodbye, Death Valley.
Next on Post Boys.
Only